They say the customer is always right. That's a beautiful lie we tell ourselves to maintain a functioning society. But every now and then, a customer comes along who isn't just wrong, but operates on a completely different plane of logic, a dimension where mirrors are meant to be flattering, blankets should generate their own heat, and time is merely a suggestion. These aren't just complaints. They are masterpieces of misunderstanding. Here are 49 documented cases where the customer was so profoundly wrong, it borders on performance art. 1. We start in the bizarre world of online shopping, where a customer left a furious one-star review for a mirror. Their complaint was not that it was broken or distorted, but that, and I quote, "It shows my reflection exactly as I look." This individual was expecting a product that would offer a subtle, flattering glow, or perhaps some real-time digital enhancements. They were genuinely upset that they bought a mirror and not a live-action filter. Their suggested fix for the company? A version that provides instant touch-ups. So you're looking for a wall-mounted selfie camera with a permanent beauty filter. I hear the premium version will even make you look like you enjoy your job. 2. A woman, who must have just emerged from a time capsule buried before the invention of the printing press, walked up to a bookstore's return counter holding a novel. "I finished this," she announced. "Now, what am I supposed to do with it?" The stunned employee, after a moment of silent buffering, explained the ancient concept of a personal library. This only deepened the woman's confusion. "So you expect me to just keep buying more of them?" she scoffed. "Yes, madam. That is precisely how the revolutionary business model of reading works. It's a bold strategy, but it just might catch on." 3. The search for a diamond ring turned into a logical nightmare for one particular customer. The first one she saw was rejected for being too sparkly, which she claimed made it look fake. So the jeweler presented a less polished, more natural-looking stone. She frowned. "Well, now this one looks too real," she lamented. "I need something that's in between real and fake." The jeweler, surely questioning all his life choices, must have fought the urge to show her a drawing of a ring. "Congratulations, ma'am. You have perfectly described cubic zirconia. Your impossible quest is finally over." 4. At 2 o'clock in the morning, a hotel's front desk received an urgent, whispered phone call. The crisis? The pillow was too fluffy, the guest, speaking in hushed tones as if the pillow were a sentient being plotting against him, explained, "It's suspiciously comfortable. I think it's trying to trick me into oversleeping." When the clerk, struggling to process this, offered to bring a firmer pillow, the guest bravely declined. "No," he declared with quiet resolve. "I'll fight through it." And so, in the dead of night, a hero was born, waging a silent war against the tyranny of a good night's sleep. 5. A book publisher received an angry letter from a reader who was absolutely livid about a novel's ending. "I invested 10 hours of my life reading this, only for the author to get the conclusion completely wrong," they fumed. Their brilliant suggestion was for publishers to release all books with multiple endings. That way, the customer could choose the outcome that best aligned with their personal enjoyment. "Sir, what you're describing isn't a new frontier in literature. It's called a choose-your-own-adventure story for adults who can't handle the slightest bit of disappointment." 6. In what can only be described as a fundamental misunderstanding of physics, a customer complained that their new blanket was defective. It failed, they claimed, to generate its own heat. "I put it on and it just sat there," they wrote in disgust. "Are we seriously still relying on our own body heat for warmth in this day and age?" Their solution was for the company to invent a blanket that produces heat on its own. My dear sir, I have some astonishing news for you. That technology exists. It's called an electric blanket, and it's been waiting for you for about a century. 7. A clothing brand suddenly found itself staring down a lawsuit from a woman claiming their one-size-fits-all hat didn't fit her dog. Her entire legal argument rested on the phrase, "The tag literally says it fits all." When the company's legal team gently explained that all was intended to refer to the species of Homo sapiens, she fired back with accusations of blatant species discrimination. Her demand? That the company make their hats more universally adaptable. "Ma'am, that product already exists. It's called a bag. It's big enough for you, the dog, and your staggering sense of entitlement. 8. A customer service agent found himself in a surreal conversation, trying to explain a simple return policy to a man who treated it like a high-stakes espionage thriller. "Hold on," the man said, his voice dripping with suspicion. "You're telling me that before you send me a new, working product, I have to send back the broken one? That sounds incredibly risky." The agent assured him this is how exchanges have worked since bartering began. The man paused, then delivered the masterstroke. "That sounds like a trust issue. On your end?" "Yes, you've cracked the code. The multi-billion-dollar corporation is trying to scam you out of your broken toaster." 9. A woman marched back to a store to demand a full refund for a pair of gloves. Her reasoning was a masterclass in logic. "They work perfectly fine when I have them on," she conceded, "but the second I take them off, my hands get cold again." She was genuinely baffled that the product ceased to function when it was no longer being used. Her proposed innovation for the company was a new version that could project heat into the surrounding area, even when not in use. "Ma'am, congratulations on your groundbreaking invention. It's called a space heater." 10. Here's one for the books. A man wanted a refund because the company's customer support was, in his words, unsettlingly friendly. He complained, "The representative actually laughed at my jokes, told me my issue was no problem at all, and then had the audacity to wish me a great day." This torrent of positivity was too much for him to handle. "I need cold, hard neutrality from a corporation," he insisted. "I'm here for a solution, not a new best friend." It seems some people just can't be happy, even when you're literally paid to make them happy. 11. A formal complaint was filed against a department store for an offense so heinous, it's a wonder the customer survived. The issue: the store played the same song twice during my visit. He elaborated on his trauma. "I was in there for 45 minutes and suddenly, bam, there it was again." Do you have any idea what that kind of repetition does to a person's psyche? The customer relations team was so alarmed they allegedly considered installing a live DJ booth to ensure a fresh, unique set list for every single shopper's journey down the snack aisle. 12. While gazing upon the majestic faces of Mount Rushmore, a tourist turned to a park ranger with a deeply serious question. "So, do they light up at night?" After the ranger explained that the 60-foot granite heads of former presidents do not, in fact, feature a nightly light show, the tourist shook his head in profound disappointment. "What a missed opportunity," he muttered, walking away. "They should at least make them blink sometimes." Apparently, he wasn't there for a national monument. He was expecting a Stone Mountain-style laser show with animatronic presidents. 13. A fast food restaurant received a bizarre complaint from a customer who was upset about their soda. The problem wasn't that it was flat, it was that it was too fizzy. "I wanted carbonation," they explained patiently, "but not like that much carbonation." Their proposed solution was for the restaurant to create an entirely new beverage category, semi-sparkling. This would be for the discerning customer who prefers their soda to be, as they put it, mentally bubbly, but emotionally flat. I believe that's just called sad water. 14. Excuse me, where do you keep your wireless extension cords? This was the question a man posed to an employee at an electronics store. When the employee, after a long pause, explained that a wireless cord is a physical and logical impossibility, the man was unimpressed. "Oh, I see," he said with a condescending sigh. "So you're telling me science just gave up on that one?" "No, sir. Science did not give up. Science gave you something even better. They're called batteries. You may have heard of them." 15. An email landed in a customer service inbox with the subject line, "Why are you ignoring me?" The body of the message was a tirade about the company's terrible response time. A quick check of the records showed the customer had sent their first message exactly 8 minutes earlier. "If you truly cared about your customers," they wrote, "you would have dropped everything the moment I hit send." When an agent finally replied, the customer responded 4 days later with, "Oh, sorry, just seeing this now." 16. A man purchased a top-of-the-line, high-end vacuum cleaner, only to return it a week later because it was too good at its job. "This thing is just too efficient," he complained to the store manager. "I vacuumed my entire house once, and it picked up everything. Now I have nothing left to do for the rest of the week. He had been robbed of the simple satisfaction of cleaning. His suggestion? A model that intentionally leaves just a little bit of dirt behind, so the chore still feels like an accomplishment. 17. A customer filed a complaint against a company called Speedy Shipping because their order took a staggering 4 days to arrive. "Your company name is misleading," the customer wrote. "I don't care about your so-called standard processing times or carrier delays. If you call yourself Speedy, I expect my package to be delivered instantly." When customer service tried to explain the logistics of cross-country transit, the customer was having none of it. Their expectation was clear. The company should have invested in teleportation technology by now. Sorry to break it to you, but Speedy is a brand name, not a binding contract with the laws of physics. 18. A man demanded a refund for his brand new windshield wipers, claiming they were defective. His evidence? They only seemed to work properly when it was raining. "I tried using them on a perfectly sunny day," he explained to the bewildered auto parts clerk, "and all they did was make this awful, loud, squeaky sound against the glass." The clerk, trying to maintain composure, gently pointed out that their primary function is to clear water. When asked why he felt the need to use them in dry weather, the man simply shrugged, as if the answer was too obvious to state, and walked away, leaving the mystery unsolved. 19. In a moment that proves we should never assume baseline knowledge, a woman returned to an office supply store in a state of genuine betrayal. The offense? Her pen had run out of ink. "I thought this was a permanent tool," she lamented, holding it up as evidence of corporate deceit. "Like a magic wand, but for writing. The ink was just supposed to be there. Always." She wasn't just buying a simple writing instrument. She genuinely believed she had purchased a handheld ink-based perpetual motion machine for 99 cents and was now considering a class action lawsuit for this violation of a sacred trust. 20. A man stormed into an electronics store, slamming a handful of dead AA batteries on the counter. "I keep buying these," he seethed, "and they keep dying. What kind of scam are you people running here?" The clerk, accustomed to all manner of public frustration, calmly suggested he try rechargeable batteries. The man scoffed at the idea. "Oh, so now I'm expected to put in effort. I have to plug something into a wall? I thought we were living in the future." Apparently, his vision of the future involves infinite, disposable energy that requires zero personal responsibility. 21. Here is a complaint that turns customer service logic on its head. A woman called to complain that when she had called to cancel her subscription earlier, the company let her do it too easily. "There was no resistance," she explained, her voice full of hurt. "You didn't make me any special offers to convince me to stay. It almost felt like you wanted me to leave." She was genuinely wounded by the lack of a desperate plea. The company reportedly considered implementing a new policy: mandatory, emotionally charged breakup conversations for all departing customers. 22. A gentleman was not satisfied with his new, high-powered flashlight. The problem wasn't its performance during the day, but at night. "It's way too bright in the dark," he argued. "It's blinding. There should be a setting for just a little bit of light for when you don't need to see that much." Customer service was momentarily speechless before offering a revolutionary, high-tech solution to his problem. They asked, "Sir, have you tried not turning it on?" Sometimes the most advanced feature is the off switch. 23. A man was deeply frustrated that his new smart speaker was failing to live up to the smart part of its name. He felt it was emotionally distant. "I asked it, 'What is my biggest subconscious fear?' and it just gave me some nonsense from the web," he complained. "How can it call itself smart if it doesn't even know me on a personal level?" "Sir, I believe what you're looking for is not a piece of consumer electronics. What you need is several years of intensive therapy and perhaps a close friend. The speaker is just there to play Spotify and tell you if it's going to rain." 24. An antique store received a returned clock with an angry, handwritten note attached. The note consisted of 3 words: "Moves forward only." The buyer was apparently outraged that the device was incapable of rewinding time. In a follow-up call, they explained their vision for a superior product: a bi-directional clock that would allow users to relive pleasant moments or undo mistakes. It seems this customer wasn't just trying to buy a timepiece. They were trying to pitch the schematic for a working time machine. 25. A cyclist was having a profound crisis of faith in his bicycle. His complaint to the manufacturer was a stunner. Every time I stop pedaling, the bike starts to lean. That is a major design flaw. When a helpful bystander suggested he could try using training wheels, the man scoffed at the very idea. "So you're telling me I have to modify my expensive new bike just to make it do its most basic job?" he asked indignantly. "No, sir. That's not a design flaw you're experiencing. That's called physics. It's been a persistent issue for things with two wheels for a few hundred years now." 26. An office worker was experiencing a full-blown philosophical crisis over a stapler. "It just commits too fast," they complained to a colleague. "The act is so final. What if I change my mind about these pages being together forever? Why is there no reverse staple function?" The coworker, having witnessed this existential meltdown over office supplies, said nothing. They simply and silently handed the person a paperclip. A long, thoughtful pause followed. "Oh," the person muttered, looking at the wire object as if it were alien technology. "Well, that's an interesting idea." 27. The world of luxury shopping took a surreal turn when a woman rejected a high-end designer handbag. Her issue wasn't the color, the style, or the price. It was the weight. "A real designer bag is supposed to have some heft to it," she insisted with authority. "This feels too light. I don't want people thinking I'm carrying something cheap." The store clerk, a veteran of bizarre customer logic, quickly suggested she could add a brick to the inside for status purposes. The woman didn't laugh. She simply gave a slow, satisfied nod of approval. 28. The simple act of breaking in a new pair of shoes was apparently an unbearable burden for one shopper. He returned to the store with a revolutionary idea. "Why don't you guys at the company just wear the shoes for a while first," he proposed, "and then sell them to us once they're already comfortable?" He seemed to genuinely believe he had just solved a problem that has plagued humanity for centuries. "Congratulations, sir. You have, after much deep thought, successfully invented the concept of a thrift store." 29. A woman took her car to a mechanic, convinced the vehicle was engaged in a campaign of psychological warfare against her. "It's gaslighting me," she insisted. "I drive, and the fuel gauge needle slowly goes down. But then, I refill the tank, and suddenly it shoots all the way back up. It keeps changing its story to make me feel crazy." The mechanic, a man whose face had seen more human despair than a dive bar bartender, just stared for a long moment. He then nodded slowly and charged her $80 for a fuel gauge trust realignment. Because sometimes the customer isn't right, but they are perfectly willing to pay. 30. Time flies when you're having a panic attack about the clock. A woman called a product's customer service line in genuine distress. "I looked at your clock at 2 p.m., she explained breathlessly. "I checked it again a little while later and it was already 4:15. Why is your product making time speed up?" The agent on the other end gently informed her that what she was experiencing is commonly known as the passage of time. This was not an acceptable answer. "That can't be right," she insisted. "I demand a formal investigation." 31. A major zoo received a formal written complaint regarding the conduct of its penguins. The visitors' issue? The penguins weren't being penguiny enough. "I came here expecting synchronized waddling, maybe some cute belly sliding on the ice," the letter read. Instead, they were just standing there. Some of them were sleeping. Their proposed solution to this lack of entertainment was for the zoo to implement a mandatory performance schedule for the animals. The penguins were, unfortunately, unavailable for comment on their new union contract. 32. Your security guard did nothing to stop me from making a bad decision. This was the opening line of a complaint from a man who had purchased a 75-inch television, only to get it home and realize it wouldn't fit through his front door. "He stood there and watched me leave with it," the man fumed. "He saw the size of the box and didn't even warn me that I might have a problem." The store manager had the difficult task of explaining that their security guards are trained to prevent theft, not to protect customers from their own lack of foresight and a measuring tape. 33. A driver sent a blistering complaint to their car manufacturer after an unfortunate encounter with a swarm of insects. "Your windshield wipers are completely useless," the email read. "I drove through a cloud of gnats, and they barely did anything but smear the mess around." When the customer service agent politely suggested that this might be a job for a car wash, the driver snapped back, "Why should I have to do extra work? For the price I paid, these wipers should have a dedicated bug removal mode." Of course. Let's add that right next to the instantly vaporized tailgaters button we're all waiting for. 34. A company that still produces physical paper maps received a formal letter of complaint from a disgruntled user. Their issue wasn't an incorrect street name or a missing highway. No, their complaint was that, on the map, their house was entirely too small. "How are people supposed to find my annual barbecue if you give my property no prominence?" they demanded. They were essentially arguing that the science of cartography should be abandoned in favor of personalized ego maps, where their driveway would be given the same geographical importance as the Rocky Mountains. 35. A man was seen walking out of a movie theater midway through the film, looking visibly frustrated. When the manager asked if there was a problem, the man explained his issue was with the actors. "They have zero audience engagement," he complained. "I was sitting right there and I expected at least a nod or a wave in my general direction." After it was explained to him that movies are pre-recorded and do not involve live interaction, he let out a heavy sigh and said, "Then what's the point of going in person?" Someone please get this man a ticket to a live play before he tries to have a conversation with his television. 36. A bowl of soup was placed on a restaurant table, only to be sent back to the kitchen moments later by a baffled diner. The reason? "It's acting too much like a liquid," he complained to the waiter. "I was expecting something with a bit more structure." The waiter, holding back a complete system failure, gently reminded the man that soup, by its very definition, is a liquid. The diner wasn't convinced. "Nah," he said, shaking his head. "Something's off with this batch." Perhaps he was looking for a stew with architectural integrity. 37. A man walked into a tech store with a clear mission. He wanted to buy a smartphone, but he had one non-negotiable condition. It could not have a touchscreen. "I just don't trust all this touch technology," he explained with deep suspicion. "I want buttons. Big, satisfying, clickable buttons." The clerk showed him a retro-style phone with a physical keypad, but he shook his head. "No, this still feels too modern. Do you have anything like a rotary smartphone?" What this man was actually looking for was not a smartphone at all, but the comforting memory of a 1970s landline. 38. According to one tourist's furious online review, the Grand Canyon has a single, massive design flaw: a shocking lack of handrails. They described the natural wonder of the world as an accident waiting to happen, and called the lack of safety features utterly reckless. Their proposed solution? To surround the entire rim of the canyon with a floor-to-ceiling protective glass barrier. Because nothing enhances the raw, untamed majesty of nature quite like turning it into a giant, sterile fish tank for easy viewing. 39. An electronics store employee had to deal with a customer who was furious that televisions couldn't time travel. "I don't want to wait until next week to see the new episode of my show," he demanded. "Just sell me a TV that can skip ahead in time and play it for me now." When the employee explained that this technology does not exist because it would violate the fundamental laws of causality, the man just muttered, "Wow, I guess humanity just isn't as advanced as I thought it was." "No, sir. We're just not advanced enough to satisfy your impatience." 40. A one-star review was left for an elegant, simple hourglass. The product was broken, the customer claimed, because it only works in one direction. They were incensed that after flipping it over, the sand simply started its journey again instead of rewinding the previous minute. The reviewer then sincerely suggested that to improve the product, future models should come with a reverse function. This would, in their view, dramatically improve time management for everyone. They weren't buying a desk ornament. They were trying to buy a do-over. 41. A customer complaint landed on a manager's desk that had nothing to do with the product or the price, but with the cashier's soul. "Your employee didn't seem happy enough to be working here," it read. The transaction was flawless, but the customer noted a distinct lack of spark in the cashier's eyes. There was no passion for the job, they continued. Why should I be excited to shop in this store if your staff doesn't even look excited to be alive? It seems the new job requirement is not just customer service, but a convincing performance of existential joy for 8 hours a day. 42. How do I know my package is actually in transit? This was the question plaguing a customer whose tracking page clearly showed the status out for delivery. That wasn't nearly enough information. I need real-time proof, they insisted. Maybe you could provide a live stream of the box on the truck, or at least send me hourly photos of its journey. When the support agent explained that this level of surveillance was not possible, the customer sighed dramatically. So I guess I just have to trust the system? That's a lot to ask of a person. 43. A man was deeply, philosophically disappointed in his new photo album. The problem wasn't the quality or the design, but the fact that it required manual labor. Why do I have to print out and place all the pictures myself? He complained to the manufacturer. Shouldn't it just update automatically whenever I take new photos on my phone? He seemed to be genuinely expecting a physical object that could magically sync with his digital cloud storage. What he wanted wasn't an album. It was a physical manifestation of his phone's camera roll, minus the dead batteries. 44. One driver learned a harsh lesson. High-quality tires are not, in fact, forged in the fires of Mount Doom. After getting a flat from a simple nail, he called the dealership in a rage. I paid extra for the premium rubber, he argued. So why didn't it defend itself from the attack? He was completely serious. His suggestion to the company was for them to invent self-healing tires. Because in his world, paying a premium price should give you a product that casually ignores the fundamental laws of physics and material science. 45. A man walked into a sporting goods store to return a pair of perfectly good binoculars, convinced they were faulty. His logic was a masterpiece of confusion. I zoomed in on a bird way over in that tree, he explained. But when I took the binoculars away from my eyes, the bird was still far away. He was genuinely upset that the effect wasn't permanent. He then suggested the company should invent binoculars that could make objects permanently closer after you look at them. That's not zoom technology, sir. That's called teleportation. 46. A family's trip to the petting zoo did not go as planned, primarily because their expectations were borrowed from a museum. They seemed to expect the animals to remain perfectly motionless for their viewing pleasure. Instead, the goats, in a shocking turn of events, actually walked up to them. The family later filed an official complaint citing too much enthusiasm from the animals. Their proposed solution: a special, roped-off section with reserved animals for visitors who prefer a more introverted and less interactive petting experience. 47. A brand new trampoline was returned to the store with a complaint that it launched the user too high. The customer was not amused. I wanted a nice controlled bounce, they wrote, not to be unexpectedly sent into low Earth orbit. The instruction manual clearly stated that bounce height would vary based on effort, but they insisted on a refund. Their suggestion was a new model with adjustable height settings. Sir, that feature already exists. It's not a button. It's just called jumping a little less forcefully. 48. A glass manufacturing company received a bizarre email threatening legal action. A customer demanded compensation because their new sliding glass door was too transparent. The furious homeowner claimed they had walked straight into it and that it was the company's fault for making a product that was, in his words, dangerously invisible. The company politely suggested he could apply a small sticker to the glass for visibility. The customer refused, saying it would completely ruin the aesthetic of the invisible death trap he had just walked into. 49. A driver was absolutely outraged that his car's GPS map didn't update reality in real time. After passing a new road construction site that wasn't marked on his screen, he fired off an angry email to the map company. "This is completely unacceptable," he wrote. "How am I supposed to navigate the world if your maps aren't psychic? Am I just supposed to guess where new roads are being built?" Someone needs to gently break the news to him that he is, in fact, expected to use his eyes to observe the world directly in front of him. And there you have it. 49 reasons why every customer service worker deserves a medal, a stiff drink, or both. Now, don't you dare pretend you've never encountered someone like this. We know you have a story that can top at least one of ours. A relative, a stranger in line, maybe even yourself during a moment of profound confusion. Unleash it in the comments. The crazier, the better. Bonus points if it involves a misunderstanding of basic physics. If this video made you feel slightly better about your own life choices, consider that a service worthy of a subscription. And hitting that like button is the cheapest therapy you'll get all week.